Okay.
And in the past year, the grant writing that we do for our veterans, um, there's been several of our grantors that we've had for probably 5, 6, sometimes more years that have cut the donation they've given us as much as half of what we've gotten in the past, just because they don't have the funds. And then there's one that we received money from for several years in a row, and last year they just didn't open up grant applications at all. So that's some of the things we're seeing here.
Okay. That's good to know.
And
That's
at turn, we're seeing a
Mhm.
similar thing with private grants. It's really slowing down quite a bit.
Okay.
Where we've had lots of opportunities, but a lot of our CRA banks are cutting the awards that they give, as well as foundations. There's just not as many that will work with agencies that work with people with intellectual disabilities.
Wow. Well, that's unfortunate. That's good news, and I am really sorry. That's terrible. But it's good to know. We need to know that because
A
you're
lot of
trying to.
those places have turned their focus to housing. So
Oh, okay.
affordable housing, that's the latest thing to jump on board with.
Yeah, because I find that the same even for seniors. I mean, they give a lot of money out to our children, which is great, but I find the same thing trying to get donations and grants for seniors. And I try to present it as scholarships. Like I tried to apply to the Gail Miller Foundation, and I use the word scholarship, and they turn me down because I don't like scholarships. So I have to figure out another creative way to talk about this in writing the grant for next year. So yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky.
Okay. This is really good to know. I should ask this, but this is good information to know because I think, right, it's easy to assume, I think it's easy for maybe elected officials or maybe even the public, they assume this stuff comes in, or maybe people who are familiar with this industry and they don't realize, no, things have changed and that's not happening like it was. And that makes it very difficult, especially for the nonprofits. So this is good information. Anybody else have a comment or an experience they could share under this? Okay, that was really good feedback. Thank you. Just a second. We didn't get a lot of feedback yesterday, really, under local match. I think it's just sort of straightforward, but let's look at this real quick. Okay. I'm assuming that the match can be difficult for your organizations oftentimes. True? Yes? Anyone?
That
I'll
is
be honest,
true.
we're the match for operations is easy. But coming
Okay.
up with the match for vehicles can sometimes be tricky.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, that's where it gets tricky.
Okay. Do you feel that way too, Phil, or no?
I'm seeing that that's a little harder for us to do. We've been fortunate that we've had the match already,
Okay.
but it's future matches that I think we're concerned about.
Okay.
I know we don't have as many people like for the area, but I've found that both of them are true. It's easier to find matching funds for operations, but so much more is needed because it's 50-50 instead of the 50-20. So even if it is easier to find them because it requires so much more, it ends up being harder to find the total amount that is required for that.
Gotcha. No, that's good feedback. And then I did mention to yesterday, so I want to mention to you too. So on this local match thing, so ERSTA, we talk about ERSTA a lot. And quite a few of our partners, some of you of which are on this call today, do participate that, and we are thankful for that. I would really like to continue to encourage you all as much as you can to be with ERSTA. That's our statewide organization for transportation, and it brings our urbanized area together with the rural area. Because as a reminder, so we here at UTA manage the urbanized 5310 funds, and then UDOT manages the 5310, 5311, and some others for the rural areas. And so yours just sort of a way to bring all that together and help each other out as mobility managers and some other things. But one of the things we're looking at doing, we're trying to use our influence if possible and encourage the use of transportation funds, possibly through what we call the TTIF or just a standard ongoing fund request from the legislature in the future that would help pay for this match. Because we understand that it's difficult for our partners to come up with this match. And so we're hopeful that that can happen, and maybe in the future that we can remedy that. So just keep that in mind, because we don't like it either. We were hopeful. FTA took feedback, on 5310 stuff this year, and I feel like, and continues to not hear our cries of pain on, we would love to everything be 80-20. We would love operations to be 80-20, not 50-50. But it's still 50-50. So, Phil,
Oh,
did you have a question, Phil?
no, I just think that, matches is a great thing for us. And, like I said before, we're fortunate we've been able to come up with the matches we've had for all our grants that we currently have and our future grants. But we do worry a little bit about grants in the future, but we continually work on that all the time to come up with other organizations and foundations that will support us in that, because a lot of especially banks really understand that match part and how powerful that is.
Well, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like it's going away. I just think that it's
Sure.
harder and harder to find. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely sounding that way. Okay. Was there any more comments on match? Okay.
Next,
right.
we've got maintenance, fuel, and insurance costs of vehicles. With inflation that we've experienced recently, I'm sure all of you have seen rising costs on that as well. But we would love to hear any additional things in that area that seem to be affecting you financially.
And one of those brought up by Turn yesterday.
Fiona yesterday, I believe.
Yeah. Was I think it might have been Henry. One of them.
Anyway.
Because I know Henry chirped up too. That being said, it was about lift maintenance. Oh, it was Fiona on this, and then Henry had a comment about something else. You're right. Okay, so lift maintenance, costly. So I'm going to follow up on this. We did a training through ERSTA, and I don't know how many of your organizations were able to get somebody in that training so that you would have somebody on staff that was a certified Braun lift person, so that you didn't have to spend a bunch of money getting that lift inspection. So, but it sounded like we need to follow up. So we apologize. We will follow up with Jason from ERSTA that does our training and see who had attended that. I can also talk to Ryan Taylor, who's over our paratransit. I know he sent a number of his staff, and see what we can do, or have another training and make sure your people get there so that we don't have this burden. And also, it'd be great if you as agencies, if we can get a few of your agencies certified, if the other agencies could come and get their inspections done by you, so that there's not that costly fee that seems to be coming from the commercial side of things.
I wonder if you'd be able to get the training agency specific, or like pick and choose who you want to have attend it? Because Fiona was saying that it filled up so fast, we didn't have the
Sure.
opportunity.
Yep. Yep. I think we'll have to do that. I agree. So, okay. So I'll make a note. Okay. But valid point.
By invitation only.
Yeah. Okay.
Good point,
Um,
Lydia.
Yeah, and we can sort of spread it across the orgs and across the Wasatch. That way you guys have some options. Okay, but is there other stuff we're missing under this one? Anything else that anybody can think of? I think these are still right. Pretty typical costs that are a burden.
It'd be nice if we could
Insurance.
include those, if we could include those pricing with an 80-20 instead of 50-50. That would be my dream, you know, for like
Okay. Okay.
repairs and definitely insurance. Because I've been trying hard this past year to get lower insurance. I've even tried to go with some of the insurance agencies like Turn uses, which is what the
Okay.
nonprofit. They won't even
Mhm.
touch me. And the problem is because I almost have like two separate companies. I have an in-home help and transportation, and insurance companies hate. Well, I'm not going to say hate. That's pretty harsh, but they have a hard time insuring companies like myself that just do on-demand transportation.
Oh,
They charge me more for that than they do for ones that I do regularly. And so it gets
that's
really
interesting.
tricky with my company and trying to divide that out. Because I'll be honest, that's been the hardest for me this past year because my insurance went from like, I don't know, maybe 70,000 to 164.
Oh,
And that
geez.
really did cut into a lot of extra funding that I had. And then like everyone else not being able to get any more funding, it's just been really tight for me this year. So hopefully things will
Sure.
get, well, I know things will get better because they have to, but that's where I wish
Okay.
sometimes it was 80-20.
I don't blame you. Okay, so I'm going to make a note of that and I'm going to investigate that. So it's the on-demand side of the insurance. That's the high cost.
That's what they
Okay.
tell me because,
Okay.
and then the other thing that has helped bring my insurance down, and you guys probably already do this, and so I'm the dumb one for not figuring that out. But we've also implemented this into our policy that we do what is it, a motor vehicle record. And so if they have so many points or whatever, I don't even put them on my insurance so they can't drive a company car. And that really helped bring my
Okay.
insurance down too, where I was just letting anybody drive because, you know, sometimes I'm just
Sure.
desperate. We need people to drive. But
Sure.
if I have people that have more than 3 points on
Mm-hmm.
their record, it really kills me financially. And so it's like, oh, do I pay for it and eat it because I need a driver? Or it's just hard.
Sure.
It's really hard. So
No, I get
there you
it.
have it.
Well, thank you for
Thanks for
that.
that
'Cause
input,
that's,
Susie.
mhm. I'm making a couple notes.
Does Phil, you might be able to answer this. Does putting the GPS trackers and the cameras and things like that in the vehicles help lower your insurance rates?
Well, we just started that this year, and we are having our insurance is coming up for renewal in March. And so we don't know yet, but we're
Okay.
hoping that will be one of the things that they look at. I know that's one of the things Alliance for Nonprofit Insurance has talked about, and they're the ones we're using with our cameras. So hopefully we could report back that that's helped some.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great if you can let us know in April what you find out about that. We'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, let us know, Phil, because I have GPSs in all my cars and that didn't help. But I know they've asked about cameras. But the problem is, again, yeah, I'd love cameras in all my vehicles. But again, how am I going to pay for the program to support the cameras in the vehicles? You know, there's a
Right.
cost to everything. So
Right.
yeah, keep us posted. Thanks.
Okay. Will do.
So
Could that
on
be a
the
capital
camera-
project that's 80-20, Christy?
Mhm. Should be. It's protecting the vehicles, so it should be. We had a vendor I need to reach out to that came to Ersta that does, anyway, that does cameras and a camera system. I do not know what the cost is. Like you say, like, is there a monthly, fee for the cameras as far as once they're installed, like a service? I don't know. But we could definitely get information on that. And you could think about it for the next grant cycle if it's something that might work for you guys.
Yes,
So,
Susie.
I was gonna say, when
Okay.
I've looked into getting it done, there's usually a fee up front and then there's a monthly fee, because that's how I do it with my GPSs. My GPSs, I have to pay monthly per device.
okay.
Okay.
All right, I made a note of that. Anything else under this section of maintenance?
That's how our tracking system works, is we do a fee up front for the cameras, and then we have a monthly fee. But our insurance company has helped us with that and subsidized some of it.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
any
you,
other
Fiona.
comments? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Real quick, we've had a few people join us late, so if you haven't put your name and organization in the chat, please do so. And we are going to move on to the next bullet, which is not enough funds to pay for operations. Does anybody have vehicles sitting idle because they can't pay for the operation of the vehicle, or because you can't hire operators to run them?
Not turn.
Go ahead, Phil.
So turn does not turn. We're not having that problem.
You're not having that issue. Okay.
Okay, cool.
No.
Anybody else?
So it seems to, on our side of things, that there are more people applying for jobs, at least at UTA. So I don't know if it's getting a little bit easier to find operators. I don't know, it is for us. This is the best staffed I think we've been as far as operators since COVID. So that's good news for UTA. There was a comment that you can't pay them enough. That was a comment from yesterday. Is there any other things with operations? As far as just, we don't like the 50-50 we sort of know the shortcomings. Is there anything, other comments on operations?
I'm not sure if this is on this one, but I know I brought this up yesterday. It's like the programs to help monitor and help us track, a program for clients that call in. It's called like Trip Master or something similar to that, where clients call in and we put them into a queue, and then we can assign them to drivers. They have the EVV and all of that. That's where it gets tricky for agencies like myself, because I know, in the Salt Lake UZA, a lot of these agencies that have it are big government agencies that they can afford to buy these programs. I'm grateful for agencies that are helping me try to achieve this, because I couldn't afford it on my own. I mean, programs like that are $600,000, and there's like a $2,000 a month maintenance fee. So it's never ending. And the more users you have is where you pay more. So it gets really tricky. So, but again, like I was brought up yesterday, the problem I have, which isn't a bad problem, because I'm contracted with Medicaid, which is a new choice aging waiver program. They want electric verification, the vehicle EVV, which is great, but they won't offer us the program to maintain it or provide it. And so, I've got it with my payroll company, but it still is tricky. It's not exactly what they want. It's like, I can't make them happy, and yet they won't provide me the program to do it.
Sure. No, I get that. And that's a hard situation. I don't know. I'm hopeful maybe some of these guidelines can get streamlined from some of these things. Yes, I agree. And we completely empathize. We have had our times, in the past, just with FTA and the reporting on the grant, right? They want something from us and we give them what we think they want, and then that's not what they want. And so that makes it difficult when, there's not a hard definition or they won't supply the way to do it, but yet they're making them a requirement. That vagueness is not super helpful. So we have a lot of empathy. We sympathize and empathize with that situation. Anything else on that? Okay.
Okay, next bullet point, more demand on service as society ages. As more of society ages, more individuals become reliant on transportation services. And if additional funding doesn't become available, these needs will not be met. So I'd imagine that John and Nobu can probably speak to this quite well.
I was hoping. Is John, oh, John is on. John, is there any
John?
way for you to speak? I don't know if you could. I think
That's
he
right.
was
His
having.
mic was having issues. Yes.
I think I got it working. Sorry.
Oh,
you say that
Yes, you do. Have you seen more demand, John? What is going on with transportation and aging adults up there?
again? We've actually, when it comes to medical transportation, we've seen a slight decrease. And I'm not quite sure exactly what is causing that. And it's slight, it's not too much, but we have seen over the last 2 years just a slight drop. I don't know if that's because we've kind of tightened up our criteria. We're enforcing more our 3-day rule where we require 3-day advance notice for trips. It could also be because we did have to take one of our part-time drivers and drop them down to less hours just due to funding. And so there could be a few different things contributing to that dip.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are all good things to know. Thank you. Are you able, just real quick, how does so I'm aware, John, how do you guys do transportation to your senior centers in Davis County? Is that done by each different center, or do
Yes,
you
each
help?
center
Okay.
each center has a large 14-passenger bus and a driver, and they will usually do multiple routes to get everybody into the center that wants to.
Okay.
So while we've seen a decrease in medical transportation, I would dare say we've seen an increase in those wanting transportation to our centers.
Okay, that's okay.
And you're able to meet that need right now, John, getting them to the centers?
Yep, we've been meeting the need. It's been a little tough because we've had some staff turnover, and getting people trained and up to speed on CDL has been a little bit of a challenge for us. But I'm happy to report our newest driver just got his CDL yesterday.
Yay!
So we're happy for that.
Great.
But the new entry-level driver training is just an extra hurdle that makes it a little more difficult for newcomers to get their CDLs.
Okay. That's good information. Thank you. Nobu, what's going on in Weber?
Weber, yes, need for most of, I say 80%, 90%, our client need go doctor's appointment, medical need. But still we provide the transportation for shopping. Shopping is very important for seniors who have no any other help or no other means of transportation, That's we going to continue, but it's always challenge is a budget or how we going to sustain for how long, or it's always challenge. I don't know. I don't want to cut the transportation for shopping, but again, it's not really. I have to work with the CFO. He's kind of new, but that's the how we going to sustain. That's the kind of point. But well, we have a priority. Medical is more important than shopping, but that's my personal preference to keep the both medical and shopping. And senior center, it's a little bit different from John, I guess. Not big need, I guess. Many people who wants to go senior center, they're able to drive by themselves. They want to go home whenever they want. They just want to participate 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever the activity they want to, not much increase the demand for senior center trips, more like a medical and shopping stay really high.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the more trips needed for day program clients because of the new home and community-based settings waiver requiring that they get individuals out into the community to participate without any additional funding to cover that expense. So I think we've got probably park and turn, and I don't know if anybody else in this group is affected by that.
And then
Enable
this
if they're here.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And this is where Henry made the comment. Was Henry's comment, was that they're doing more trips, obviously, is making more wear and tear on the vehicles. So, I mean, things like your mileage goes up, you've got to do oil changes sooner, I'm sure, those kinds of things. That being said, like I said yesterday, the DOJ has sort of looked at this and are saying that Utah needs to have more of these rides. But as you have all told me, that at least as the organizations involved in this arena, you only have funding to get people to and from your site. You don't get funding, even though it's mandated to make these additional trips into the community. You do not get additional funding for that. And so that makes it very difficult for you to sort of meet that mandate. I don't know. It's really hard to know what that looks like. I think sometimes, my personal opinion is sometimes it's hard to communicate with the government. I think they see one thing and they don't see, the reality of your lives in the trenches, of really helping people and really understanding what's happening and how this transportation has to function, and the lack of funds. I mean, you can only do so much. Susie, go ahead.
I didn't think about this yesterday, but I was thinking about it. We help, it's called Daybreak. It's a day program where they take seniors who have memory issues to a day program, so it gives their family a break. And so they have the funding that they can take them out into the community, but they don't have the funding to get them there. And that's where they've partnered with us to help them get to the facility. And so we have done that at a reduced rate. But that's where, going back to what you're talking about, you either get to do one or the other. And so, so yeah, that's where it gets tricky. So they have to choose.
That's interesting. Okay. So they can take the extra trips and get reimbursed, but they can't get them there.
But I don't think that utilizes DSPD funding, correct?
Yeah,
Susie?
it must be a different funding.
It probably is it's probably due through a different funding, but they've got, however they get their funding, and I'm not really quite sure. It's with, I don't know if you guys have heard of Daybreak. They're up in the mouth of Weaver Canyon, but they've contracted with us. For a while, they were using our vehicles to take their clients out in the community until they got their own. But they can take the clients out in the community. They just don't have enough funding to do both. And so that's why they came to us and said, hey, will you help us get our clients here? And then they can take the clients out into the community. And so, yeah, we take about 3 carloads every morning to and from to the facility with clients to get them up there for the day. So.
Okay, that's good to know.
Susie,
Thank
do you think they would be interested, if they're a nonprofit, in participating in the council and joining forces through what we do?
I was trying to. The problem is they're not nonprofit.
They're not nonprofit. Okay.
No.
Okay. Anybody else have input on this subject? Okay. Next, we have some clients not being able to independently ride the public transit system. That's pretty straightforward, but is there anything anybody would like to add to this?
And keep in mind, and this will probably come up a couple times through these different gaps, which is now from 4 years ago, we have increased a lot of the on-demand area. Understandably, not all of your clients can use on demand on their own, but there may be some. I would actually be hopeful, particularly with aging adults, if they could get to a comfort level of, um, you know, using a phone and ordering on demand if they live in that area, that could really be helpful to them. But there's also lots of persons with disabilities, right, that still are able to book their own ride in those things, and it's become very convenient for them. There's some debate actually nationally. I was reading some articles from mass transit this morning, the two sides of this debate. FTA has some particular rules on third-party contracts and drug and alcohol rules, but it's super helpful to be able to use these TNCs, which is like Uber or Lyft or a cab company, to help us with paratransit, right? Because there's lots of ambulatory clients and they like that on-demand ability. It gives them a lot of freedom to do what they want when they want and not have to schedule ahead and wait and the cost. And so it's a very good alternative for some of our customers. So that being said, we do have, I might add in there, and then when we put this all together, just maybe expand on this, but maybe put federal rules can limit the service, just so that we can keep that in mind. But we through what we call APTA, APTA is our National Transportation Association that UTA belongs to. All transit authorities across North America belong to that, and they are good. They're a proponent of trying to make things better and easier in our arena as far as specialized transportation. Sometimes some things can be done through there, so we'll see. But that being said, as you know, for UTA, we're rolling the on-demand out in sections. So there is some on-demand up north that doesn't go into Ogden right now. However, we are opening a new on-demand in a year. In April 26th change day is my understanding. We will get another on-demand, and it will go into more of those areas like Pleasant View and Roy, and some of that could really help low-income individuals in those neighborhoods, and also aging adults, persons with disabilities, veterans, because you're getting closer to Hill and those kinds of things. So it's rolling out here and there because we can only, do an area at a time. This spring in April, we are opening a new Provo area to the west of Provo to help with with help with first mile, last mile. Anyway, that'll be on demand. And then one of the things we have done, this will come up later, I think, when I was looking at the gaps, but they realized after doing VF for a little while in South Salt Lake. So South Salt Lake County, Riverton, Bluffdale, Draper, that area, they have on demand. We also have on demand sort of on the west side of Salt Lake City proper, Rose Park, Glendale, some places in there. They have discovered that they need more accessible vehicles. It's not because it's a higher need. It's mostly because if that vehicle's engaged, right, in some other trip, and then somebody needs an accessible ride, well, then there's a significant delay, and we can't have that. And so the vehicles down in the Provo area that will be doing service here starting April, all of them are accessible. So that should really help with scheduling issues we've had. That way, any vehicle can go out if it's an ADA call, and they don't have to maneuver around and find that specific driver and things like that. So I do think that's an improvement. I think that will be helpful. So I want all of you just to keep in mind too, if there's a on-demand area, please don't forget that the travel trainers can always come and train people. If you think you have clients that could be trained to use on demand, that would be great. We'd be happy to help get them trained so that they have a little bit more freedom. And don't forget that the cost is really low. So for instance, if you are paratransit eligible, our on-demand is free, just like if you were riding the train or anything else. Your paratransit eligibility makes the rest of the service free for you if you can use our what we call regular service. That being said, also, but a senior, they have discounted passes. You can use the discount on Via. There's medical discounts, there's low income discounts. We talked about this yesterday. I think we're going to make a note and try to have fairs. Want somebody from the fairs department come out and speak in April? Would that be helpful? Because there's a concern that maybe you or your clients don't know of some of the fair discounts and things they could be using, or your organization could participate in. Would that be helpful to have fairs come out? I hope. So, I'll have to answer, but it's hard when we have these kind of meetings, but we're going to do that. Is there any comment on this particular topic of public transportation? Or anything else we should keep in mind, or that would be helpful for your customers and clients?
I have a quick question for John. How do your seniors do with the on-demand in your area? Do they utilize it? Are they afraid to use it? Have they grasped it? Can you give us a little bit of feedback on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have yet to hear back from anybody's personal experience using it. We refer a lot of people there, but then they never report back to us on how that went.
Okay.
I mean, what's hard is right now it's only in the south end of Davis County from Centerville south to North Salt Lake. What's hard is a lot of our major medical appointments take place up in the Layton area.
Okay.
Near Davis Hospital. And so what's hard is, I mean, really, my hope or dream would be that they could expand Via On Demand to cover at least up through Layton and even further north, so that people could utilize that. Because yeah, I would say, if I had to just go off the top of my head, I'd say probably 70% of our trips are all going near Davis Hospital and all the clinics surrounding that area.
I'm going to see if
I was just going to say, I think there's something in the 5-year plan that addresses that, but I don't think it's for a couple
That's why we
years.
had them all.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's next year. Let's see. Let me see if that helps me. Sorry, I'm looking really quick, John, as you guys can see, as I put it on my view screen. We will see. Okay, yeah, we know this is an interactive map. Sorry, I have a lot going on this thing today. Okay, go away. There we go. Okay, so John, if you look, let's see. So here's the key: innovative mobility zones. That includes, because it looks like they've taken on demand. So an innovative mobility zone can be anything from on demand that we're doing through Via, could be Uber, Lyft. So this isn't the greatest map.
That map pretty much shows what on demand is currently. So
this is the current. Okay, so I know that there's a spot coming up here. Let's see, because I looked it up. Or is it really high up? No, I know there's
seems
one.
like there was one
here.
in northern.
That's 25. Let's do 26. Sorry, my bad. There should be one up here. So let's see. It's not. Let's see.
It's northern Ogden, but I thought there was one in northern Davis County as well.
So it looks like they're sort of skipping the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least for our seniors, the seniors who live down in Bountiful tend to have a bit more money Um,
Okay, gotcha.
and so, and a lot of them are still able to drive themselves, so we don't have as much need down there. But where we are seeing the need is definitely in
In here.
Clearfield, Layton, Sunset,
Yeah,
um,
gotcha.
Kaysville areas.
Now let me look and see if there was, I can't remember if there was any more in the 5-year plan for that area. It
Doesn't look
doesn't,
like it in 27.
no. Let's look in here. I mean, they're trying to
They are,
improve these routes. I know
yeah, the
that.
regular routes, they're improving quite a bit. They're
Mhm.
filling some areas where there wasn't a connector, and they're going to have the bus go completely through. They're getting rid of the trolley and adding a bus, a few things out that way.
Mhm. But it doesn't look like, oh, no, that's still the
No,
same thing. Doesn't look like in the 5-year plan, there's on demand in this area. So we'll just have to make sure we're addressing that gap. So
with
one
the
of the things,
temporary trips, maybe.
yeah, with probably temporary trips, because these temporary trips, my hope is that they don't go on forever, right? This is not a forever service, but but the thought is too, I don't want to duplicate things. And so in areas where we have on demand, we may not do as much temporary trip, right? Well, there would be exceptions, but like this area, right, is sort of a big gap to me. And so this would be an area we'd really want to concentrate on and sort of keep up on and make sure we're filling those gaps because, we have these on-demand situations to the north and to the south. And so the idea is I don't want to duplicate stuff that UTA is doing, but on the other hand, when there's a big gap like this, we want to be aware, of where the gaps are so that we can fill them, so that we can help you guys get your customers to where you need them to be. So, okay. Sorry, that was a lot, but hopefully, as we do this, we'll inform you as well as take your feedback about these gaps. So, um, anything else on the public transportation?
Hey,
Okay.
just
Okay.
Yes.
if
Yes,
I
Andy,
could
go
share
ahead.
just with well, I was going to say with seniors and people with disabilities, kind of in that same kind of group, we still run into issues so like aging services, they do great when it's inside their county and everything, but if they have a
Mhm.
medical transportation that's outside the county, then that's where we run into issues. We have to use like mode of care, um, which has its own problems and things like that. But one of the big gaps is still like because they're curb to curb, right? It's not door to
Mhm.
door. So some people need that additional assistance from door to door,
Gotcha.
especially if you're in complexes or if you're dropping somebody off on a large medical facility and they have to go,
Sure.
you know, to the doctor's office that's on the third floor and things like that. And some people,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, some of our people will get lost and things like that. So if they're on a waiver program like DSPD or New Choices and
Mm-hmm.
everything, then usually, their case manager or support coordinator can put in additional hours in for attendant services for the drivers to do that,
Mm-hmm.
door to door type of service. But unless you're on a waiver or something like that, you're not going to get that service. So it relies on family to have to do a lot of
Sure.
that kind of stuff. And if they don't have family, then there isn't really anybody to do that. So that's still one of those gaps
Okay.
that's in there. That was one of the nice things about the vouchers, which
Sure.
we could do some of that kind of stuff. So trying to fill some of those gaps. So I still see that as one of those a gap.
No, that's good to know. And I think, like you say, when we get the temporary trips going, that's some of the idea behind that, right? We don't have to stay within a county. We can take people to their medical point because I know there's a lot of crossover up in Weber Davis going between the counties to medical, but there's also a lot that go into Salt Lake for medical, whether it's the VA, maybe it's up to the U. So, and we want to be able to cover those. The medical trips will be a priority. We'll see what we can do. We'll see how fast we go through the funds. This is a pilot, so we can sort of get that data, make some judgment calls, and do those things. Now I want to, Susie, you do door to door, I believe, if you're still on. Looks like you're on. Maybe she had to step away. Susie?
No, I am on.
There you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
we
okay.
do. We actually do door through door service because a lot of times
Okay.
clients need help actually getting inside the house as well.
Mhm.
I know that gets tricky with some agencies, but
Sure.
we do that.
Okay. That's good to know because Susie's going to be helping us with that project. Jay will be helping us. We have to have more than one provider for these areas. That's a FTA thing, which is fine. That being said, I needed to ask him. I think they could though. They're not government technically, so I think they can do door to door
Door to
too.
door.
And I don't know why. And down south, we're going to have United Way help out down in Utah County. I think they could. So I think the temporary trips, Annie, might really help fill that gap as best as we can. How's that? But I think it will. I think we can fill that, help with that gap right there with the temporary trips. So just keep that in mind, and we'll make sure everybody knows when we finally start those. And if you have customers and clients that come in and, need something, please, you're going to reach out to Trista on those, and we'll use the funds and see how far they go and see, get a lot of data and see how it's helping and what we can do to continue on. Anything else? Thank you for all that feedback.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to talk about SB 195 real quick and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So don't worry, we'll get through all the gaps. The other, the area, the other section when we get, I'm going to stop sharing. Maybe, here we go. Some of the other sections aren't as, well, the next one anyway, isn't as, we'll get through it all. We just have to update the plan. We don't have to make a whole new plan, which is nice. We did learn that this year through training. So happy day. So we're going to update stuff and get it done quickly. But I really like to have these conversations. A lot of us have been working together for a long time, and I really appreciate people, your organizations participating and giving us feedback. We really need this information so that we can really help you fill these gaps and really help these aging adults and persons with disabilities. So thank you for participating and being called on and being willing to share your experiences. It's super helpful so that, all of us can plan for the next grant cycle and all of us can plan sort of moving forward. So real quick, SB 195, that's a bill Senator Harper is sponsoring in the legislature right now. And it will, I don't know why it wouldn't pass, so we'll see. It's a sort of what they call a omnibus bill. It's got a lot of little pieces in it of transportation issues he sort of wanted to address, one of which is really interesting is electric unicycles. There's a big section there. Apparently there's an issue with electric unicycles, but there's a lot of different things sort of thrown into this hodgepodge of a bill. One of the things Senator Harper included in this bill is to have us do a study. In fact, I have the verbiage. To have us do a study to basically to see if it would be viable to maybe centralize the transportation that all of your organizations do and that we help you with. And so because of that, we would analyze costs, what the cost benefits would be, if it's practical, what the barriers, right? It's going to be sort of that typical thing, but the end game is different in the fact that with an eye to centralizing the services. I think Senator Harper sees some of the difficulties that we see. I've found Senator Harper to be a very good partner. He seems to be, reasonable and very concerned about specialized transportation. We have gone up more than once to report to him in the interim transportation committee, and we continue to do so. They're sort of our state boss, and I think he sees the same things we see, right? Siloed funding, the inability to maybe work, use the vehicles cross organization, things like that ideally could happen and could be done if we centralize that kind of thing. That being said, so it just says in the bill real quick, The department and a large public transit district will jointly study programs offered by government entities related to human service transportation, including coordinated mobility services, paratransit services, non-emergency medical transportation, human service public transit fare programs, youth transportation programs, excluding yellow school bus, and other similar programs provided or coordinated within the boundary of the large public transit district. So that means the urbanized areas. So this plan, this study is specific to the Wasatch Front, specific to our areas. Keep in mind on the URSTA side of things, URSTA applied for and was awarded, so UDOT is facilitating. There is another study that we're doing through URSTA, and again, why sort of with the same focus, very similar focus for the rural areas. And at some point, these two sort of plans could intersect. And when I say that, a lot of you realize, especially as you get up north and south, you deal a lot more with the rural communities, even though you're in the urbanized area, right? We're trying, how do those rural people get into the hospital or, get up to Salt Lake if they need to? So there will be a point at which these will sort of, like I say, intersect, I believe. Anyway, and then the study shall evaluate strategies to consolidate the transportation services described in subsection to blah, blah, to improve efficiency and service. So just keep that in mind. We don't have funding for that, so we'll see how this rolls out once it's approved and gets through the legislative session. But that'll be another thing that we'll really need everybody's help with. And I'm going to stop so that Trish can make announcements and we can end on time. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Christy. Just one last thing. We have already scheduled the URSTA conference, so we want to get that on your calendars. It will be held in St. George this year, so it's going to be nice, warm area. Currently, it is scheduled for September 10th to the 13th. That may be shortened to the 12th. We're reevaluating the rodeo, and we may put that in the middle of the conference on a weeknight instead of on a Saturday. And that information will be up on the URSTA website soon, so you can get registered and whatnot. If you have drivers you're going to send to the rodeo, I encourage you to have them start practicing now and becoming familiar with the different events that they need to be able to test on, as well as the written test. We found that a lot of drivers commented last time that they didn't realize how difficult it was to drive those obstacles because they weren't sure what to expect. So anyway, just a heads up on that. And then our next meeting will be held in person on Thursday, April 24th from 10 to 11:30, and that will be held at the park offices like we did last year. So we appreciate Park for letting us use their facility. And if we don't have any additional questions, then we will plan to see you all in April.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.